This is a tutorial video on writing polynomial equations given the roots. So I'm going to take these zeros that are already solved, and I'm actually going to go backwards, write them as factors, and then I'm going to multiply them out to have the full polynomial in standard form. So it is a little bit of a long process, so stay with me. If you have questions during this video, please just pause your video and ask me if you're in class. If you are watching this outside of class, write down what those questions would be and we can go over them, because I do want this highly skill-based process to make sure that it's as user-friendly as possible for you. All right, kind of watch me watch through this. So I've got an example for you, and I've got some steps for you over here on the left. So I'm going to try to stick with those as much as I can. All right, I'm going to turn each of these zeros from the solved form that they're in into the factor form. So what that means is I'm going to set them equal to 0. So I'm going to take where it's at now and set it equal to 0. The way that I would do that is subtract 5 from both sides for this first one, and that's going to leave me with x minus 5 is equal to 0. So one of my factors will be x minus 5, okay? Just kind of keep this thing separated. So again, going to do it, add 2 to both sides, because I'm trying to get this thing equal to 0. X plus 2 is equal to 0. So another one of my factors will be x plus 2. All right. Now I've got one that's got a fraction in it. That's okay. I'm still going to work through my algebraic process. So for this first one, and I'm going to make me some more room here so you can see clearly, I'm going to multiply both sides by 5 in order to get rid of that denominator. These will cancel, and on my left side, I've got 5x equals 2. Keep trying to get it equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And 5x minus 2 is equal to 0, meaning 5x minus 2 is my third of the factors that are here. So now, step 3 tells me to multiply the roots together, 2 at a time, and combine any like terms. So that means that I'm going to take it out of factored form and put it into standard form. All right, so right now I'm looking at something that's f of x equals x minus 5 times x plus 2 times, pardon me, I'll try to be a little bit more neat than that, times 5x minus 2. All right, remember again, we've done this before, but we're going to multiply 2 of the factors at a time, and then once we get a trinomial for those, we'll multiply the last binomial factor so we can get all things multiplied. All right, so again, 5x minus 2 is just going to kind of hang on for a little bit, and I'm just going to focus on the first two factors, x minus 5 and x plus 2. All right, multiplying those, I'm going to double distribute or use the FOIL process, if that makes sense to you. Some of you guys use your boxes for organization. That's totally okay. All right, so here we go. X times x is x squared. X times positive 2 is 2x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Again, this last factor is just riding along until it's time to use it. I'm going to combine like terms in the middle here. So that's going to give me a x squared minus 3x minus 10, as the 2x and the negative 5x were the only like terms. And now I'm ready to multiply this final factor in. I'm going to distribute the 5x to all three terms, and I'm going to distribute the negative 2 to all three terms. So that's going to give me a 6-term polynomial, which then I'll look to combine like terms and put in standard form. Okay, so here we go. X squared times 5x is 5x to the third. Remember, you add the exponents when we multiply like bases. All right, 5x times negative 3x is negative 15x squared. And 5x times negative 10 is negative 50x. All right, now I'm going to distribute the negative 2. Negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared. Negative 2 times negative 3x is positive 6x. And negative 2 times negative 10 is positive 20. So now my final step is to put this thing in standard form, meaning combined like terms and the highest power down to the lowest power in descending order as far as the way that my terms are aligned. So my highest power here is x to the third. So are there any other x to the third terms? There are not. So 5 x to the third is what I'm going to start with, and I'm going to cross that out so that I don't keep looking to add it in. You don't have to do that. It's just something that I do to keep me organized. After x to the third is going to be x squared. So I've got a negative 15x squared and a negative 2x squared. So that's going to give me a total of negative 17x to the second power. I'm going to cross those out now that I've combined those like terms. Next will be x to the first, negative 50x and positive 6x combined for negative 44x. And I'll cross those out. Now my last term will be x to the 0 power, or just a constant term. There are no other constant terms other than 20, so then this becomes plus 20. So my final answer as a function, f of x equals 5x to the third minus 17x squared minus 44x plus 20. Okay, so that's my process. I'm going to do that one more time with you, but I am going to introduce a complex root, and we'll work through how to sort that out. Okay? So here is example 2. Same process. Going to write these as factors and then multiply out. This new character to the whole plot is 2i. That is a complex factor. Now, one thing that I'll tell you is that complex factors come in conjugate pairs. So that's the plus or minus idea. So when I go to write this, I'm going to keep into account that conjugate idea. All right. So try to organize and separate here. Subtract 3 from both sides to set my 0 equal to 0, which then will give me the factor of x minus 3 equals 0. So x minus 3 is one of my factors. Add 4 to both sides, and x plus 4 is equal to 0. So x plus 4 is one of my factors. And now we focus on this conjugate pair situation that goes with our imaginary 0. All right, so first things first, we need to keep in mind that I is the square root of negative 1. Okay, we know that I is the square root of negative 1. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm looking at the fact that I have a radical on my right side, and if I could get everything under the same radical, it actually will be easier to work with. So my next step is, okay, how can I rewrite 2 in radical form? Well, 2 is the same thing as the square root of 4. So x is the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1. Everything I've done so far, all 3 steps are equivalent to each other. But what I'm doing is setting myself up to get everything under the same radical so that then I can multiply both sides by itself or square both sides so that I no longer have any radicals in play. All right, so hopefully you understand that 2 is the same thing as the square root of 4. And now when I multiply my radicals on my right side, the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1, that's going to give me the square root of negative 4. All right, now remember, my goal is to get this thing equal to 0. Now, it will be easier to do that if I don't have any radicals. So my next step will be to try to get rid of this radical by squaring both sides. And so x squared is just that, x squared. And the square root of negative 4 squared is just negative 4. Okay, now we're heading in the right direction. So my last step to get me equal to 0 would be to add 4 to both sides, and that's going to be x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. So that means my last factor is x squared plus 4. Now keep in mind, there are 2 roots that will come from x squared plus 4 because of those conjugate pairs that all imaginary numbers come in. Okay, so now we're going to take these 3 factors and we're going to multiply them together. If you need to pause and ask a question or pause to take a look, keep in mind that this plex number, this imaginary number, is a little bit different situation, and that process is slightly more complicated. All right, here we go. We're going to multiply those three together. So we're looking at f of x is equal to x minus 3 times x plus 4 times x squared plus 4. So I'm going to do like I did in the previous example. I'm going to multiply the first two factors together, x minus 3 and x plus 4. I'm going to do double distribution, or FOIL. And then once I get a trinomial for those guys, I will multiply it by the last factor. All right, here we go. All right, x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. That third factor is just riding along, waiting patiently. Combining like terms in the middle is going to be 4x and negative 3x for a total of 1x. There are no other like terms. So I've got my trinomial, and I'm ready to distribute the last factor. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make some more room. So hopefully the process over here was understood, and I'll try to clear up some space here so I can fit all this on the screen. All right, so now, just continuing the process, I'm going to distribute x squared to all three terms, and then I'm going to distribute 4 to all three terms. So I'm going to get a 6-term polynomial, and then I'll simplify. All right, x squared and x squared, add the exponents, is x to the 4th. X squared times x, add the exponent, x to the 3rd. X squared times negative 12 is negative 12x squared. Okay, now I'm going to distribute the 4. 4 times x squared is 4x squared. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times negative 12 is negative 48. All right, combining like terms. And again, I'm also trying to keep in mind that I want standard form. So highest power is 4. Are there any other x to the 4ths? No, there aren't. So that's going to start us off. I'll cross it out. Next is x to the 3rd. Are there any other x to the 3rds? No. So that's going to be the next term. Cross it out. Now x squared is my third in line, and I've got a negative 12x squared plus 4x squared will give me negative 8x squared. Those have been combined. My linear term, or x to the first, is next. There's no other x to the first term, so plus 4x. And then finally, I'm left with the one constant term, negative 48. So that's what my f of x is going to be. So my polynomial function, f of x is equal to x to the 4th plus x to the 3rd minus 8x squared plus 4x minus 48. So that is my polynomial function that if I would factor it, and then set each factor equal to 0, I would have gotten 3, negative 4, and I would have gotten 2i and negative 2i as my answers there. Again, x to the 4th, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 answers for my polynomial. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Remember, ask lots of questions. Do not wait until the end of the video if you are in class and you have a question.